Mhm.
Okay.
Stay up there.
What we got tonight?
We saw them in town. I heard the porter start. I'm like, I bet they're over at the bar now. And sure enough, they're pulling out, leaving just as we were getting ready to go. Okay. Call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for August 11th, 2026. First item on our agenda this evening is roll call.
Raza? Here. Lancy? Absent. Beck? Here. Malay?
Here.
Malone?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Solfa?
Here.
Barron? Here. Lehman? Here. Lohman? Here. Pieper? Here. Fehrenbach?
Here.
Anderson? Here. White is absent.
White and Lancy did let me know that they would not be here today. All right, up next is a reminder to speak into the microphone if you come up to use the podium tonight. And then item 3, approval of minutes for July 28th, 2026 and April 28th, 2026. Any comments, corrections, anything on those?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Solfa, second by Malone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Up next is item 4, which is items to be removed, added, or changed. Do we have anything?
No, we do not.
Nothing? Okay, matters from the public for items not on the agenda. Is anybody here for anything not on the agenda? Right. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll go on to the Alderman Barron.
Thank you, Your Honor. The consent agenda reads as follows. Approvals. Resolution 2026-86-R, Task Order 27, Local Limit Evaluations. Resolution 2026-82-R, accepting the public improvements for Prairie Commons Development. Resolution 2026-83-R, accepting the public sidewalk improvements at 1281 North Redant Road. Resolution 26-92-R, authorizing execution of task order number 2 with Strand Associates, Inc. for Phase 1 and Phase 2 engineering design services for various sidewalk gap locations. Approving Resolution 2026-91-R to execute a contract with Mead, Inc. to perform 35 kV feeder upgrades for L3412 and L3414 at Main Substation. Resolution 2026-93-R, approving an extension of the expiration of the residence at River Point Plat of Consolidation. Resolution 2026-89-R to authorize a master services agreement with Electric Conduit Construction for fiber engineering services. And a Resolution 2026-90-R for Task Force Order Number 1 under MSA with Electric Conduit Construction. I move we accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, second by Solfa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll get right into the regular agenda. The first thing up is item 7.1, which is proposed Cat Cafe at 139 First Street, Alyssa Viala, Kitty Coca Cafe LLC applicant, ordinance 2026-35, amending code of the text of the zoning code, Title 10 of the city code, ordinance 2026-36, conditional use permit for pet cafe use in downtown mixed use district. Drew? Good evening.
As you just indicated, there are two ordinances before the committee tonight. The first would amend the city zoning code for the downtown mixed use district to add the use of pet cafe as a conditional use, and it would also add a definition to the glossary defining the use, because this is a little bit more of a unique use, not really otherwise categorized in our code presently, but we did feel it was appropriate to add it as a conditional use and add a definition for it. The 2026-036 would grant a conditional use to the applicant, Alyssa Biala, with Kitty Coco Cafe LLC. They would be looking to take the space that was last occupied by the Batavia Animal Clinic at 139 First Street. This is about 1,900 square feet in total along there, at the First Street address. The applicant would be basically providing a space, the cat lounge, where the animals would be present on the property, and they would also be offering basically a cafe where there would be cocoa, coffee, baked goods, other items like that. The applicant is present tonight, and I can provide you a more of a direct explanation of the use. But overall, the Plan Commission was supportive of her requested use at that location. There was a discussion of several items that ended up being conditions of approval, but they did ultimately recommend approval of the proposed use at this location, as included in the both ordinance 2026-035 to amend the code and to allow the proposed use with ordinance 2026-036. So staff does recommend approval of both ordinances tonight, and as did the Plan Commission.
Anybody have any questions? Kevin?
Yeah, just something quickly, and I think it's clear from the presentation and from what was drafted, but it's worth saying out loud. It's correct to say that any animals in any sort of cafe would not have access to the food prep area.
Yes. So basically, the cat lounge is a enclosed space. There is two doors to enter and exit the space. So there is full separation between the food preparation areas and the areas for the animals. So
And to be clear, that's abundantly clear in this presentation. Just wanted to make sure we said that out loud. Yeah.
and there's also, I believe, a separate air facility, like air handling and things like that too.
Yes, correct.
So basically, there's separate systems for each too.
Yeah, this concept has been something that my family's seen down in Florida. My daughters love it, and they already told me I better vote to approve for it. Especially just my daughters who love the cat cafe concept, so, okay.
I want to see you in there, Sofa.
Just like cats, I tolerate cats.
Seems-
No, it's a fun concept. People
I think it's an
love it.
interesting idea. I think, because there's nothing like that around here. We've got Wolf Wash and all the other stuff for dogs. I mean, there's places where dogs can go and have their spa day, whatever. I understand that. But the cat side, this is something different. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it pans out over there. It'd be pretty cool.
I just wanted to add, I'm happy to see this. I'm not a cat person, but my family is, and
I have allergies, so that's why.
Right.
But they're very therapeutic animals, and it's nice to have a healthy community and a healthy space where our community can get that as well. So thank you for coming and having this awesome concept.
Oh, thank you. And they'll be enclosed, so you can sit at the bar and you can look at them, and you don't have to be with them.
I found the visual really helpful to imagine what it's going to be look like. Thanks.
And they're the ones that we've experienced in Florida, they're adoptable.
Yes. Yes, they're going to be adoptable. I'm going to be working with local shelters to find homes, forever homes for these cats.
All right, so I have to be the Debbie Downer here just because I've had a relative that just spent a week in the hospital with an infected hand from a cat bite.
Okay.
What do you have a plan in place should a cat start getting aggressive and start biting and, something like that in place?
Of course. Thank you for the question. Yes, there will be a policy that will be put in place with animals being in an open location. Things might happen, and having a procedure for my staff and myself to follow, to go through, help the person, make sure everything's okay. If there's a puncture or anything like that, it's reported to the health department. And also then that cat would be then put on a side. I'm going to have some separate cages just in case there's anything that happens.
Being a good attorney, I already read, you have to sign a waiver to get in anyway. So it's at your
Yes.
own, it's
Yes.
at your own risk.
Yes, there will be a
So
waiver.
don't go in there if you're scared of the kitties.
And this relative of mine has like 7 cats, and so it was just one of his own, just a fluke.
Yeah.
So
I love waivers, so sign the waivers. And
Yes, yes, there will be a waiver before they can come into the cat room. But to watch, and we're going to have the front window. BEI is working with the board to put windows in, so you'll be able to see the cats inside and out.
now I envision like an outdoor thing
good.
for them, like a little
Yes.
hole in the thing.
Yes, actually, my friend, I can't wait. I'm like, oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other questions, somebody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that would be on ordinance 2026-35, amending the text of the zoning code. All those in favor? Aye.
And I'll also move to approve ordinance 2026-36 for the conditional use permit.
Second. Motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. If you want to come and describe the business or anything, we'll have it on TV at our next meeting at Monday night, the council meeting. You can come in and just explain that, get the information out, exactly where you're at, website, all the information, so that way we can pass that along to the public.
Oh, of course,
Okay.
not a
But do you
problem.
want to keep it on a regular agenda then?
Yeah, I think we should. I think it's, it's a totally different option for a business in town. Nobody has it around here. So, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Okay. Next is 7.2, which is a discussion on the Batavia Active Transportation Committee annual budget for bike and pedestrian plan projects. Who's got that?
Thanks, Ronna and Alderman. My name's Liam McKay. I became the chairperson, not just the co-chairperson last night. Regan, who has been chairing the commission for quite some time, steps down in a few months. Really want to thank him for his contribution. You people would understand better than most, it's really important to get on with those that you work with and have a really positive attitude, and he certainly had that and has led us very well for a couple of years. So I've got one more year on the commission until the time frame kicks out. And so for my sins, I am now the chair. It's a really important submission. I'm glad that there wasn't a dog fight about the cat cafe, so that we're in a positive mood on this piece of infrastructure. Do I just press? Sorry.
You want to start with yours?
Yeah.
You can do the bottom right too, Tim.
There we go, thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Right-hand click? Yep. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for the opportunity. It's our first budget submission since I've been on it, and I think there haven't been too many budget submissions in the past. We currently allocate $300,000 to the sidewalk and bike plan, the strategy, to implement the strategy. We've found that this is the third year of funding put towards that strategy. I know that there are older people here who put a lot of work into that strategy. In 2022, I was one of the 600 members of the public, having just been a newly minted American citizen. It was the first of my active engagement in my community who put some feedback into that strategy, and I think it was adopted by Council in February 2023 and started getting funding in 24. So for a start, those numbers that were allocated were $2022. We all know that there's been a little inflation since 2022 to this year, and a couple of other issues that have meant that we are sort of behind schedule. In our third year of funding, we want to try to make sure that by halfway, when we do a review, we'd like to do a strategic review of the 10-year plan, just to make sure that it's a living document, that it's up to date, that we look at research trends, changes in behaviour, which happened in COVID. A lot more people are walking and cycling than they were beforehand, and also moving during the day because a lot more people are working from home, etc. So those things sort of need to be taken into account. So I'm going to run through the reasons why I think the budget should, well, the Commission unanimously thinks that the budget should go from $300,000 to $400,000, which I know is significant, and this council has always made very prudent decisions about their finances, and I expect this to be one of them. No, there we go. Protected bike lanes can reduce cyclist injury risk by up to 90%. And this has come out through a number of studies, including 72 million trips made on divvy bikes in New York, which is a massive study that really gives us some geospatial data on where people are travelling, why they're travelling, how many more people use a bike lane if it's protected than people who just use a painted one, and how much safer they are if they use it. And it goes hand in hand that if you feel safer, you're probably more likely to use it. The mathematical equation to actually do the geospatial data for 72 million bicycle trips is something that, if you can read, will get you a job at Fermilab. But it's a very august study which proves out that walkable, bike-friendly streets encourage healthier, more active lifestyles. This is one in Chicago, for example. You can see the protection separating it from the cars. It has a parking lane between that, and the lane of traffic. We're not looking for the Rolls-Royce models. We know we're in Batavia, and one of the key ingredients that could save us a lot of money from trying to protect bike lanes in most streets would be planting the seed that we would be a longer conversation, perhaps well into next year, would be looking at reducing the speed limit as the default speed limit for Batavia from 30 to 25. A number of our neighbours have 25 as a lower speed limit, certainly Evanston, Naperville, Elmhurst, cities that are noted livable cities, rate well in livable cities. I think we can match them on a lot of fronts. Our schooling system, way of life, safety, police, firefighters. I think sidewalks that we're missing in 25% of the streets in Batavia, and some protected bike lanes, especially where those bike lanes are placed beside cars on faster than 25 miles per hour, would be a key ingredient of increasing the livability. There's just another example of using green paint, separating it from the traffic. Chicago's protected bike lanes, like those on Milwaukee, Kinsey and Damon, use curbs, bollards, green paint, create physical separation. We're not suggesting that in the first instance that the entire length of perhaps McKee would be treated this way. I think we all know that it's at corners when cars do tend to cut into a bike lane to turn into a housing estate. It's most noticeable with the new housing estate on McKee, the Pulte houses. And that could have, if we'd developed a manual, which is in the strategy, to develop a manual, that manual would have told us to put a protected bike lane in there, and it probably only would have been an extra $50 per house, and would have made, I think, the Pulte homes more attractive to buyers to know that that's a protected bike lane down there. So it doesn't need to be the full length of the road. We're looking at, at pilot treatments to make sure they work, people are using them, and for people to see that they make it safer. A few references of where our data came from there at the bottom. Sidewalks are the foundation of walkable communities. We are, 25% short of having at least one on one side of the road in Batavia. It was, I think, in 2019, I think it was closer to a third when the council adopted the 100-year strategy. I was a little bit perplexed when I saw a 100-year strategy. I've seen the Great Leap Forward for 5 years in China and 10-year plans, but 100 years to put sidewalks in Batavia I thought was a bit of a stretch. I did some door knocking of one community that doesn't have a sidewalk on either side of the road, and people were engaging, happy to talk to me about it. They're very keen to see one. They do understand. Some of the ones that we haven't done aren't the low-hanging fruit that we're catching up with as we repave a road. They do have an incline, they may have electricity installations, they may have trees that make it a little more difficult. But since this country landed a person on the moon, 57 years ago, I'm pretty sure we can work out how to get a sidewalk on one of those streets. And then I ran into a woman who made me promise on my faith, we both have the same religious faith, that I would not mention her name or her street because she loves this council so much she didn't want to be a Karen. She didn't want to be thought of as someone who was whinging, and because she's raised kids and now grandkids. One of her kids has stayed in town and her grandkids lives here. And a thing she said to me that really, impacted me was the fact that she understood her grandchildren going through COVID and how bad it was to sort of be captured, and we all, were moving only in our family groups. And she said, because that's sort of my life every winter, because she doesn't have a sidewalk, she has mobility difficulties, she lost her husband some years ago, and to walk out onto the road when it's dark for much longer periods of time, it's sometimes snow, and she's competing with cars is just too much for her. And, I really don't want to go back to the lifestyle we had to lead in COVID, and I couldn't imagine having to do that, each winter. And so for Betty, I think we should approve the budget increase. It also supports mobility for children, seniors and people with disabilities. Having a flat surface, it's really important for people who have mobility difficulties, not just wheelchairs, but also just a walking stick, a broken foot, as I had a little while ago. Having a flat surface is really important. And everyone will notice during summer how many people are out walking around, kids on bikes, and it's just so much safer if we get that speed down and we have the infrastructure necessary for them to do it safely. More vibrant streets with active storefronts and public life. We all want to encourage people to shop locally, to support local businesses like the Cat Cafe. And to do that, it's much easier if we do have a safe bike lane and we have sidewalks for people to access the sidewalk network. Increased social cohesion. There's a number of studies were done in Australia about kids who walk to school, actually knew their neighbours a lot better and knew which houses that they could run to if there was an issue. They knew where people would be there during the day and where people wouldn't. And also got to understand the importance of community, that, you do say hello to Betty as you go past if she's gardening in the front yard, and you do say hello to the neighbours whose kid has now left and gone to college and ask how they're going. And, I had a friend who used to put it quite bluntly, well, he was a police officer, and he said, it's much harder to stab someone you've talked to for a while. And and I think, there's something to that about getting to know your neighbours. You're less likely to upset them or play music too loudly or disrupt their lifestyle if you understand who they are and you understand they've got a right to their space too. Protected bike lanes and sidewalks make for a safer, healthier, more connected community. Investments in active transportation pay off across generations. I think when I was here June last year, just doing the quarterly report, I mentioned some statistics about 8 to 14% of increased value in properties if there is good infrastructure for sidewalks and bikes, especially protected bike lanes. That's a significant, amount of money, and I'm sure, Pulte was very happy to put the bike lane in there and the wider boulevards and good sidewalks, which had been missing. As someone who lived this side of that, who sometimes wanted to walk to Randall to get across, it was really hard to do a lot of the year with no sidewalks on either side of McKee. You had to go several blocks either way to get to a sidewalk. It really has helped link whole sections of our community with other options that weren't there before. Okay, now we have the numbers, just in case you weren't persuaded by the romance of it. Because it's really important to understand that the $3,000 allocation per year this is the third year of that, sees us, falling a bit behind in terms of partially completed is 38, but completed is 19%, and that partially completed could take some time longer. So we should be at the end of this year at around 33%. 3 years of 10, my rough math. We should be a little ahead of here. And what we're worried about, though, is that money being static over the coming years, not allowing for inflation, project cost, could mean we fall a little further behind. For example, we did do a lot of work and looking at, and thanks to the commission members who did the work on this, who did the research about the bike lanes, etc., who did the numbers to show the annual shortfall at the moment is about $62,000 a year to try to make sure that we complete the strategy as planned for 10 years. And I'd really like to do that. I think it's a realistic strategy. I don't think it's overly ambitious, but I think it's ambitious enough to show the community that you're serious and you want to complete it. I think if we want to hit that, that's the shortfall, but taking into account the shortfall for inflation and project costs, it gets closer to about $82,000 a year. One of the reasons we're building in a little more is to allow you to look at these numbers more closely, but also getting aside for us to try to prioritise where we think the sidewalks or bike paths are most necessary is to do it visually. It's very hard to do. Google Maps are really out of date. They don't have an awful lot of updating for Batavia over the last couple of years. I did ask in my first meeting late in 2024, the then Director of Public Works, if we could get a GIS map of where our infrastructure was. I know it's been another engineer and now Tim, so I'm not holding Tim responsible for this, but I again last night requested that map to show us where our sidewalks were so that the ones we'd like to focus on are the ones closest to schools, the ones that could get most people to contact downtown, or maybe communities that are cut off by a missing sidewalk so that they could then get to downtown if that missing sidewalk was replaced. Before perhaps the periphery is done, where only half a dozen people or 20 or 50 people may benefit from it. We want as many people as possible to benefit from the infrastructure first. I'm happy to try to answer any questions if anyone has any.
I don't know if you've noticed when we try to put in free sidewalks from the federal government by schools, people do not want, if they don't have a sidewalk in front of their house, the person you spoke with is the exception.
Yeah. Look, there were 3 people in Republic who obviously really didn't want, that. They think it's part of their own space. I get that argument. There were people who argued that slavery should continue. I didn't think it should, and neither did most Americans. So I think, as leaders in a community, sometimes we have to push back. We have to say, actually, it's council land. And the best use of that council land is to provide your neighbours, including hundreds of people who live the other side of you, with the ability to get past your house safely at all times of the year to get to the shops, schools, health services, or whatever else they may do. I understand it, and I know that you'll get pushback, but I'll give you an undertaking. I'll be the first person there. I'll knock on every door, and I'll sit down and have a conversation with them about it. I think it's best to be honest with them. I think it's not fair to suggest that you can stop a community moving forward in a safe, reliable way of getting around simply because of an aesthetic reason of your front yard and your house. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a road. And the sealed roads all got done between 1930 and 1950. I think we can get sidewalks done before 2119.
Are you looking at streets that have no sidewalks or streets that have a sidewalk on one side of the road already?
Our first priority would be where there's no sidewalk. So at least that street has one on either side. I think eventually it'd be great to have them on both sides. That would be the advantage, but I don't think it's too hard for people to move a little bit sideways to a street corner to go to the other side. The streets are not that busy all the time so that people can't move to a sidewalk on the other side. That would be our first priority. That's what we'd like to get done in the 10 years or the 6 years remaining.
Yeah, and sort of to echo the concern Alderman Solfa shared there, we fill this room when we put in sidewalks or bike lanes, right?
Yep.
Probably the most contentious. One quote that sticks with me is you'll have blood on your hands putting in a bike lane on Millview. That said, I was on Republic, over the weekend, stopped at a garage sale, spoke with a family there and just casually asked, how do you like the sidewalk here? Because I had heard a lot about it. I live one street over. And the gentleman there said, I know my neighbors didn't like it, so I kept my mouth shut, but we love it. We have a small kid, and she just loves it. She did complain about the grass seed the city used to repair his lawn. He was very upset about the weeds that came with that. But so I do think that sort of a mixed bag on that. But to follow up on that point, it is hard because we do hear a lot of loud noise on that. You're asking for about 100,000 additional per year?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
From my perspective, at least, this seems to make a lot of sense because, all the data you shared, all the data that I think we've known. But in addition, we're just seeing e-bikes take over. And I think the more infrastructure we have to help integrate e-bikes as much as we do normal bikes, the better, right? Again, those intersections, heading down roads, it's just going to become a bigger problem, not a smaller problem. So if we can get ahead of this now with $100,000 per year today, maybe that'll save us 200 or something else down the line. So it seems to make a lot of sense to me. Thank you for your passion and work on this.
Thanks. We did a roll and walk to school day at Storm, and a lot of families did come from Republic, and I know some of those families, so I made sure I had a chat with them, and they also said the same thing. I think that is about the quiet citizens who really don't want to upset the neighbours who seem inflamed about a situation that they're easy to go with, and I think that passion, is understandable. But I do think that the overwhelming public argument can be put to them. And sometimes, I'm sure no one ever wants to pay for a tax increase, but you've got a good police force here and you wouldn't have one. Or the firefighters, if people hadn't increased taxes at certain times, made those tough choices that have resulted in Batavia being a safe, good community for people to live in.
I just want to point out, with regard to the sidewalk presence in the city of Batavia, whether it has no sidewalks, a sidewalk or a path on one side, or sidewalks on both sides, there's actually a map that's contained within the bike and ped plan on page 27, right at the bottom, that can show you all of those segments.
I don't think it actually has been updated since then. So that's the missing links.
Oh, is the update?
As where they are now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, including like Republic, because that was the Safe Walk to Schools program, I think, that helped fund that. And there's a couple of others like Pulte, for example, that now has gone into place. And there's more on the east side, I think. But I mean, and I understand the pressure on GIS. It wasn't a go at staff. I get the list of priorities that are there, but perhaps this increase in budget might. I don't think it'd take more than 4 hours of GIS work to actually track the infrastructure down. It's just Google Maps isn't supplying that to us.
Liam, we do use we have a map service, Near Map, so it gets updated quarterly. In the meantime, Tim or I can maybe work with you and get, if there's certain areas, just to kind of show you that infrastructure that has been installed. I think the latest one is March of this year. So we do have that info.
So could that give us like a radius around schools, for example, and downtown? How do you focus down to a particular geographic area?
Yeah, we could pinpoint an area and then draw a circle with a radius and then just kind of screenshot that into a PDF.
Fantastic. That'd be great. I'd appreciate that. Sorry.
First of all, thank you so much for this presentation, for your advocacy, and for laying it out in this presentation. Second question, do you have term limits? Do you guys really get kicked off after your term is done? Can we change that? Don't go.
In other forums, let's say the Senate, I would really strongly suggest that term limits are a great idea. But I think we're going to come to you with an ordinance for a start about formalising having co-chairs so that we can share the work around a bit, with the secretary and one chair. If there's an ordinance with police, a meeting with other councils or Kane County about bikes, one person's sort of got to do that. So in that ordinance change, we'd also look to include perhaps some student representation, as the Environmental Commission does. We have had a student for a few months now. They've got into college, God damn them, and therefore we've lost them. But we'd probably like to extend the commission and also deal with allowing people to be reappointed for one more 3-year term. Because, for example, I think the Bicyclists of America, bronze standing is every 4 years. Is 4 years? I think it's every 4 years. So we could get to our next application. Not a single person on the commission went through this one, and it's quite a process. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of reading, a lot of using words, approaching businesses to make sure they're bike-friendly businesses. And I'd like to not hand over to people who've just come on with energy something that's this big that they haven't been through before. So we'll we will come to you with an ordinance in the coming months that would allow for co-chairs to be there, perhaps a student representative, perhaps an extra commissioner, and then one reappointment for 3 years. I think 6 years is probably an appropriate time to contribite.
When did that change? Certainly your
was
predecessors
recent.
were there for 20-plus years.
Exactly.
before you.
Yeah,
It was a recent change that was made by the
Why?
previous, at the request of the commission themselves. There had been members who had been on for more than a decade, and they wanted fresh new ideas. And that was one of the ways that they believed that they could get fresh new ideas.
Yeah, can't wait to see that ordinance. That sounds great. What year is the manual that you mentioned slated in the plan to?
Well, there isn't
be
a
developed?
really filled out project plan of when things should be done. I mean, the infrastructure projects, but the other suggestions that were adopted, including a manual. And this one could be like, I think, fairly easy because there are federal authorities that do have manuals which you can cut and paste. It doesn't mean you've got to do everything in that manual. It just gives you, the say-so to then go to a developer and say, well, our manual for a new development your size is that we have sidewalks this width, or a sidewalk and shared bike path would be the best option for this particular place. It gives you that backup to go to them and say, this is our manual for our city, we can do it. Have you read the one, is it the American Association of City Transport Officials? I think
ACTO?
ACTO, yeah.
Yeah,
ACTO has an excellent one. And,
Yes.
And
So, as a matter of fact, as part of our plans for this year, we had we're going to hire a firm to do road design, and we applied for a CMAP grant to fund that project. Unfortunately, we did not receive the funding for that, but we can look to fund that so that we can get those things in place, just like you're talking about.
I think those grants stop where the green line stops. It's somewhere around Oak Park, I think. Yeah, that's a shame. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, just a quick note on the committees here. So one thing I know that I had to discover, a lot of how we don't necessarily promote committee openings. So kind of what happens is you have people who've been there for 20 years and everyone's like, we have Transportation Commission? What? They've been there for 20 years, right? So it's not necessarily as publicized outside these walls as you would think.
That's not true.
It wasn't when I looked.
So now.
I went through the whole exercise of having
Lori
to-
is posting open positions on commissions, and we get plenty of applications. And the process is that we forward those to the committee themselves, and then they proffer recommendations for appointments to the mayor, and then we approve those.
That was based on a prior exercise. That was not the case. So if that's the case now, that's great.
Well, we try to talk to people too at our public engagements. We're doing a lot more of those than we ever have in the past, with music in the park, with the farmers market, with schools. If there's a parent coming, on a bike with 4 kids, that to me is a commissioner in the making. And we're trying to tempt them now by telling them that Bob White, was on the commission and now he's a councillor. Look at that, he's an alderman. But we may attract the wrong people. just jokes. But we are trying to get the word out. But please, you as well, if anyone ever comes to you or you see someone riding a bike, please pull them up, because the more the merrier for getting the work done is really helpful at those public engagement events. And we're 1 position down now. By the end of the year, we'll be 2 down. So we are in the process of advertising again.
I also wanted to point out that in every annual budget, both the Active Transportation Commission as well as the Environmental Commission are provided with $5,000 stipend every year. They've used those things to buy the pop-up tents that they use at these events, as well as swag to hand out to the members of the community for their engagement activities. And they've really done a good job of actively doing that.
And I think the swag being branded Batavia really helps tie it back into this as part of the city's operations. This is how the community gets involved in. And there's nothing brings kids and their parents to a table like flashing bike lights, and swag like that. And also just the Kane County maps that we're able to get some boxes of. It's incredible in the day and age of the every map being in your hand, that some people still really like to unfold one where they can see where all the safe ways to, cycle or walk are in Kane County. And that going across our borders is something that we're working very hard on too, in a few workshops to make sure that we work closely with our neighbours, North Batavia to our north and St Charles, and also North Aurora, to try to make sure that, they lift their game as we lift ours.
I really love putting money towards something that is as inclusive as sidewalks and bike lanes. It's, you kind of touched on it, but it's something that all ages in town use, and of all different walks of life. Even like at my business downtown, there's at least 3 people who work in my business who are all either like single car families and regularly walk or bike to work and back. Like that's how they get there. And actually I know lots of Batavians who are single car families, and so they walk a lot around town. So I really, what?
You qualify as a bike-friendly workplace.
Yeah, yay.
Put that in the plan.
But I also just really appreciate these commissions, because when I hear people like who have complaints or concerns in town about biking or walking, I love to be able to say, do you know that we have this commission, and you can reach out to them with your concerns and get engaged. So thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
X, go ahead.
Yeah, I just pulled up the ordinance for the Active Transportation Advisory Commission. It does not appear that there are term limits. So we can chat about that, but I'm reading the ordinance and it doesn't appear to have actual term limits.
Regan, did you make this up to get off?
Yeah, so the term is 3 years. There's nothing preventing you from being reappointed to a term. When we wrote this ordinance, we had to transfer members from the the Bike Commission to this. Right. And what the commission chose to do was stagger some of them, so all of you weren't appointed at the same time. But yeah, there's nothing preventing you from being reappointed to that commission.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, my definite understanding was that we had a 3-year time limit. Yeah.
You still want to add the junior people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Congratulations, Regan. You can stay on.
I, for one, think it's a good idea to increase this. If you want to do it the entire 100,000 the first year, that's fine. I think it's really important too that, I'll go off what Kevin said about, the fact that e-bikes are taking over. I think it's really important that we work with outreach to, especially the school district, to just keep hammering this down, that they have to understand if they're out in traffic, they're part of the traffic world, and they have to abide by those rules. And if we can, paint sections, sign sections, whatever we have to do to make it obvious, especially to them, that that's where they should stay. They don't need a group of 3 or 4 of them riding down the middle of Wilson Street, riding wheelies and having fun. I get the idea and the fact that they are a lot of fun to ride. They just need to do it safely. And, we have to keep, improving the communication that we have with them, especially the younger kids, because I don't see it letting up. I think that's just going to be, it's constant in the news now every day. You see somebody that got hit, or, a 50-year-old in St. Charles or in Geneva that ran into the side of a truck. It just, we've got to do something about it. And I think the biggest thing is education, so they know where their protected lanes are, where they can ride, and how they should be when they're out in traffic.
I think Andrea had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to share. I wholeheartedly agree an increase with escalation and costs and stuff like that. There are many projects where we said we're only doing X amount of dollars, and then you go 5-10 years down the road and you're getting quite a substantial difference in the outcome of product. As far as increasing it to get more output out of staff at this point, I don't know that that's possible, just because staffing levels, although, you'll see we're going to be asking for another engineer in-house with the budget. there is just so much work. We are fortunate to receive grants, but those take a little bit. When we do the R&R for a sidewalk, we do start it, just as Liam was saying. When John Kennedy was here, I always tell him, go look at the downtown and work your way out from there and start at the schools just for the trippers and the sidewalks that need to be replacing. And so we have looked at some of those. We prioritize the sidewalks, although there is a list in the bike and ped plan with an order. If we have grant funding, if we have a road project, if it's on one of those STP funded projects, we shuffle them around just to make sense. And if we see other things, we kind of add them in there. Those are the priority that was assigned when this plan was put into place. Obviously, things change, and there's also constraints. That's why one of the items on the consent agenda was to hire Strand to help us put together sidewalk gap program plans, because they're not as simple as taking a gradle and taking out a couple inches of dirt and throwing the stone and concrete and voila. There's retaining walls, there's easements for construction, there's land acquisition. So some of those processes, we would love them to be short, but in reality, they usually tend to be a little bit longer than what we hope for. So I just want to add that real expectation. And Tim and team is doing a great job. Chris put together a spreadsheet kind of showing when things have been completed, just so we can track it. And I know that's been shared with the Active Transportation Committee as well. And kind of when we foreshadow some projects taking place, if they, like I said, we have rearranged the top 10 items. We've had internal conversations with the striping, because that's part of the bike and ped plan, and wayfinding signs, and trying to figure out what was the intended meanings of those things. Staff and people that gave input have changed, and just trying to make sure all of that still kind of follows the intent of the bike and ped plan. So that's kind of where staff is on this whole plan. We're all for including the sidewalks and adding them where feasible and when we have the funding. So that's all I have to add.
I wanted to add, thank you for the presentation. I love that you're highlighting the things that we can do more of. It's always important to hear. And I really like that you're highlighting the bollards too with the bike lanes. When we put in the bike lanes on Millview, I was a little confused as how we put parking next to the sidewalk, because I'm like, that doesn't seem safe compared to other communities, and what the possibility is that we can make it safer. So thank you for bringing that up. I definitely am in support of more funding, because I see the need in the community with all the things you've highlighted, the discussions we continue to have here on council. Several members here mentioned the e-bikes, the e-scooters. I mean, those are just all over. And I agree that it's important for us to get ahead of that. Something I wanted to mention to, I guess, communications is when they come up with the Batavian, that magazine that the city writes. I think the last issue was July, August, right? They had a little section in there about whatever the new legislation is, but there wasn't a chart. So recommendation from residents was, for the next issue, if we could add more language to provide education to our community on the different regulations that we're enforcing. That would be helpful, especially since we have it on our social media. So it'd be nice to see it in the print media as well. And just want to also add, always in support to make things more equitable and accessible too. So yes, I am a yes to support more funding for that.
And this week, the city is going to be publicizing a new set of videos. It's actually kind of looks like a documentary, and it's Sergeant Michelle Langston, who does an excellent job of explaining all of the new rules. And Max, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say a practical issue of the Batavian is we have to get them stuff like I think 3 or 2 months in advance. So sometimes we don't put super timely information in there because by the time it publishes, it's already out of date, or there's better ways to share it. But we can obviously put things in there as time allows.
Any and every place.
And we also have space constraints too. I know there's certain issues where we'll buy extra space, so that was something that Lori worked on with the printing. So I know for Public Works, we have the rotation and update that information as it comes through. But if you hear of any specific items that you think graphics would be better, if it's a repeat, we could always look at those as well.
Laurie and the team came up with a really excellent visual brochure, which I'm sure you're aware about the e-bikes and e-motos and the difference. You know, for me, I break it down to pegs bad, pedals good. I just like it simple. But it was interesting handing that, you know, brochure out to some parents. You could tell parents went, "Oh, I bought my kid an illegal bike," you know, and just yeah. So anything that's easy and visual that we can try to get out there, because I know the police have chased. And they have to stop the chase as soon as the kids aren't going to stop, and I understand that for the safety of everyone involved. Difficulty, but, you know, Sergeant was in my street. There's 3 in a single afternoon that were doing very dangerous things on e-motos, not e-bikes, right. You know, and so just trying to get parents to understand there's a big difference between a power-assisted pedal bike, which is an updated, modern, you know, a bit easier, introduces more people to be able to use it bike, and a bike which is really just a dirt bike with an electric engine instead of a carbon one, you know, carbon burning one.
Okay, thank you. And we'll find out during budget time if you get what you want.
Okay, thanks very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Up next is 7.3, which is ordinance 2026-37, establishing 2027 wages and salaries for non-collectively bargained employees. Here we get to see you not in executive session.
Right? Kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice.
Good evening. As we are getting ready for the budget, we always talk about whether this should come before or after, but we have that discussion. But we are bringing this before, and it feels really early this year, but definitely an opportunity to talk about the wage and salaries for the non-collective bargaining employees. Similar to what I've done in years past, as staff, we look at several internal and external economic factors, including CPIU, Social Security COLA, wage increases for other government contracts, and the economic cost index. As well as we look at each position, I do look at comparability to our comparable communities, ensure internally and externally our pay grades are still, the positions are still where they need to be. Just a little bit of the data, I won't get super deep in it, but the CPIU as of June, that's the latest we have out, is sitting at 3.5% over the last 12 months. And then the economic cost index, which what that does is that measures wages and salaries for the one we looked at as local governments, is sitting at 3.4%, with benefit costs increasing at 4%. In regards to that, I did make one comment in the memorandum, just talking about we are experiencing the same concern that the economic cost index is showing in regards to benefit costs are growing faster than wages and salaries. This year, going into 2027, we're sitting at about 16.67% increase in our health insurance premiums, which is the largest since we've joined the IPBC going back to 2016 that we've seen in over 10 years. So it's very significant. We've obviously have throughout the years have looked at different cost savings measures and different types of plan designs, which we've introduced, and we're still continuing to do that. But obviously, these are some large increases. The other thing we're going to be looking at is next year, we are also going to do a full RFP in regards to our insurance. While IPBC has been a phenomenal vehicle for us, I think it's important that we do look at that from time to time and don't just assume that's the only process out there. So just to give you a little idea of where that stands. So security is still a little too early to give what they have as far as what they're saying they're going to give out. They're not going to let us know until October. The the forecasters are saying it's going to be anywhere from 3.6 to 3.8. And then most of our, the weighted average for first-year state and local government contracts are sitting at 3.4. So based on that information, staff is recommending a 3.5% increase for our wage and salary ordinance. And then there's just a few housekeeping in the ordinance itself as far as a few small changes that were things that were actually approved this year. Just changing, if you were to lay it side by side to the current existing ordinance, just wanted to be transparent in the fact that the manager of electric operations is a pay grade 20, so made that edit in there. And then the electrical engineering manager is a pay grade 20. And then the last thing, which isn't noted in here, I wanted to make, after I published it, I apologize, I realized, which in the agenda item after this, I'm going to talk about, but the discussion in regards to the assistant city administrator, that change was not reflected in this, and so I will make that change before we bring it to council next week. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Bargaining chip for the unions for next year. I'm sure that they look at that before they even sit down. That's the first thing they look at, is what our budget has already been approved at.
For sure.
Happens in schools.
I totally understand it. I mean, they know what they got to work with, and they know what they would believe that they'll probably get approved through the city council if they're willing to do that for our, non-union.
We're basically just looking at like a cost of living adjustment anyway, though. It's just a COLA. I mean, you gotta let people have a living wage.
Yeah. And then we will move, I guess we need a motion on ordinance 2637, establishing 2027 wages and salaries for non-collectively bargained employees.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by myself, a second by Malay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then 7.4, which is Human Resources Department, budgeted new position and proposed staffing structure.
So in the 2026 budget process, you guys, thank you, approved a new management analyst position in the HR department. The approval amount was for 6 months. I know we're sitting in August. Lots of, unfortunately, things that have come up that's kind of pushed us behind in me getting this memo to you. One of the things that the evolution kind of the HR department, kind of a little bit of history. Back in 2015, I actually was the first HR director to come on board here at the city. And since that time, this department has kind of evolved from being a very basic kind of answering basic questions, things along that line, to doing some very strategic things, as well as managing many more processes than we ever have. One of them in particular is the payroll process. When I first started, with talking with finance, we balanced it out where the approval of certain changes came from the HR department, but they were the ones that were processing it. And then in October of 2014, we implemented a new human capital management system, Paycom. And so since then, now payroll's been fully processed through the HR department. Obviously, from an audit perspective, the finance department has that side of it. During that time frame, we didn't necessarily, we did not add any other staff because we really wanted to understand what the efficiencies were, where, what we were going to gain, how much time that was taken, as well as kind of understanding building the system. So since that time, we've had time to build that system. And then in looking at the position that was requested and approved versus kind of where our needs sit today, I do want this management analyst position in regards to the job duties. The things that we had talked about during the budget system and what they were going to do, I still want to use, and I need those things in there. but we have current existing employees that have the capability to do those things. My current benefits and payroll specialist and my HR coordinator are phenomenal employees, and they absolutely have the ability to do those capacities. And so that's why at this time I'm requesting a payroll HR assistant position, which is going to do processing of the payroll and some administrative type of duties, which then can get that some of those administrative duties off of their plate and allow them to do that management level, analyst level, and strategic type of duties. So I've kind of outlined that in the system or in the memo in regards to what exactly we would be looking at. The proposed changes would be the HR payroll management or HR assistant would be placed in a pay grade 8. The existing HR coordinator would be, currently is in a pay grade 8. I would, I looked at comparabilities as well, internal and external comparabilities. I would propose that they move to a pay grade 10. And then the existing benefits and payroll specialist would have a title change to benefit and payroll supervisor because they'd be day-to-day supervision of the payroll responsibilities. And for that, they would stay in that existing pay grade because the comps bled out that way. But I would propose with their additional responsibilities that they would just move one step in the pay grade kind of ahead of schedule. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
What was the pay grade for the HR management analyst? That
Pay grade 19.
19.
So it's significantly higher, yeah.
Bringing them in at a much lower level or having that
Right.
savings.
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to say it equates for this year a cost savings of $2,929, and obviously then it's much more into next year. And in fact, it's probably even more because that was down to 6 months and we're already a couple of months into not even filling it, so.
I really appreciate hearing that you recognize like talent and skills that are already on your team and, you know, kind of promoting from within, even though, I mean, it is a promotion, but using that in that way. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And they already have the knowledge then of your department. And so I like how you're thinking and how this plan is structured.
I appreciate that. Both of my employees, current employees, were hired literally within a couple weeks of each other. So as you may recall, a few years ago, I had a complete shift in my staff, and we've really grown a lot, and we get really excited when we have conversations of all the things that we'd love to do, and unfortunately just don't always have the bandwidth. So I'm excited to be able to say, all right, now all these things that we want to accomplish, we can do and bring them all the way through by kind of lessening some of that administrative burden on their plates. So thank you.
Other comments? Somebody care to make a motion on this one?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Presentation on the strategic plan update.
Hello, everyone. Believe it or not, I think we're into the third quarter of the year, or we're getting close to it. And obviously, we're all working on budgets as well, so I wanted to give you an update kind of where we're at on the strategic plan and then get some feedback from you all on kind of where you feel we should start to take things now that we're coming up to the last 2 years of the plan. So quick reminder on what are our main outcomes. You know, we framed this in terms of, you know, what do we want Batavia to be when it's achieving its fullest potential? That was kind of the underlying question those of you who participated answered. We talked about trustworthiness and transparency, environmental leadership, and so on and so forth. But what I'm going to talk about today is kind of what we've done so far this year and then kind of going back a couple of years. And then kind of open it up to a question as to start thinking about that next plan and how we kind of start closing this one out. You know, like I said, we are going into budget season, and a budget is a statement of priorities at the end of the day. So if there are things that you want to see reflected, let us know so we can make sure the budget puts the resources behind that to actually make it happen. A couple of things that we've done so far are the police e-citation program. One of our items was to digitize existing processes that relied on paper. This is one that I think a lot of our staff from IT to police to other departments are really excited about. This moved our entire, ticketing system to an online system that integrates with our records management system. So it's a seamless process from the officer writes a ticket to payment to record keeping, et cetera. Previously, every single ticket we wrote would have to be hand entered by record staff. That's freed up significant time. We also have ways to collect payment directly from the website. Typically, residents would either have to call or stop by City Hall, so there was a major improvement to the resident experience there. I'm going to give shout outs to Todd Davis and Sean Batten. Sean was one of the employees you approved in last year's budget, the enterprise application specialist. They were able to connect two systems that the vendors themselves could not. So they're now asking how we did that. And that information is ours to keep.
It's patent.
It's exactly, but truly really good work by them on it. If you were at National Night Out, you would have seen that the police officers have some shiny new e-bikes. Those are being used as part of our bike patrol efforts throughout the summer. Our officers try to find as many hours as they can to be out in the community on their bikes. Unfortunately, injuries, trainings, kind of things that happen throughout, police work sometimes makes it harder to get on and out in a bike patrol as they'd like. But those are something that officers have been rather happy with, being able to kind of use it a little more and go a little farther. Every squad car we continue to buy continues to be a hybrid car. Our fuel use is actually pretty steady, but because we're doing a lot more patrol, we moved to 12s. Our fuel or mileage and economy has improved significantly with these police cars. As we add vehicles in community development and public works and others, we're also evaluating plug-in hybrids and continuing to look at hybrid vehicles. Another item is we talk about staff recognition. A couple weeks ago, we recognized several members of the police staff with a Valor Award, the highest award that we can give to officers. And there's been a number of other recognitions that you've seen in front of council. And then a really strong emphasis on sustained community engagement with the farmers market this year. Electric was out there last week. I know just about every department has or will have time at the market. You all did a week at the market. We've got another one coming up. We will have a special guest there. We'll tell you more about that soon. But there's been a lot of really cool things going on with community engagement, and that's probably been one of the strongest areas where we've really put some effort into. Other accomplishments is you put in the plan about workforce housing. The South River Street project over on South River Street is moving ahead, and that'll add 72 units of workforce housing. One thing that you all should be proud about is when I go to talk to other communities, city manager conferences, I like to tell them my city council voted 14-0 to approve an affordable housing complex. And that always makes people's mind explode. And then I tell them we incentivized it with TIF funding, and they're like, their head exploded again. But that's something that you should be aware of, is that adding affordable housing and resoundingly doing so is a major accomplishment within the strategic plan, and that'll add 72 new families to the city of Batavia that might have not otherwise been able to live here. Still working on the downtown public restrooms, opening by the end of season. Mostly material delays, to be honest. That's what's kind of dragging this out a little more. You would not have any idea how hard it is to get fences. Almost all City Hall records that we aim to digitize this year are digitized. Community development, police have sent off a number of files, ordinances, resolutions, agreements, et cetera. That project is moving nicely, and staff have said it helps them save significant time in researching things. You approved a couple of weeks ago an economic development strategic plan consultant. I know that work is getting underway. That was another strategic plan item. And then ahead of TIF expirations and the re-TIFing of certain areas, community development reevaluated and launched the new downtown improvement grant program, or downtown enhancement grant. Not improvement, enhancement. And then there was also separate incentives for QT9 and other local businesses outside of those programs that continue to spur development within our community. Another year, we continue to use Parkway trees and use the bag fee to fund those. That's a significant increase in the number of trees we're able to plant, and then also how much residents are paying. So we're seeing more trees in the community. Steve's probably not too thrilled with that right now. We're also working on the electric utility planning. That was a major item in the strategic plan. We're working with the IRP task force. We meet again tomorrow to continue to plan for the future of our electric utility, as well as the transportation safety programs expanding with the e-bike campaign that Liam talked a little bit about earlier, that Lori worked on with the police department. That was a really good campaign, and that's still continuing to this day and ongoing. You funded the green program another year with the single-use bag fee. There's going to be an update in a week or two from Craig about some of the successes and things that have gone well with the program, including some data. Both of our DC fast charging stations are open. That was another strategic plan item, and we continue to see pretty strong usage out of them, and pretty good uptime as well. We worked some things out with our service provider, and things have improved there. And then lastly, we have bike and pedestrian counters that we continue to move around, working with the Active Transportation Commission. I think we put one by the ramp so we could start counting kind of how many people are using the ramp. We had one out by Speedway to kind of see how many people are using that crossing over there. And so the Active Transportation helps move them around. Another thing is emergency preparedness. We continue to hold tabletop exercises so that when events like today and bigger events happen, we're ready and prepared. During the spring, we did a couple of smaller group tabletops rather than citywide tabletops. We have one coming up on August 31st that'll be kind of the whole senior management team. But we did small ones on, a bunch of things we hope never happen. But, God forbid they do, we're going to be ready and prepared. We're also working with Kane County on a more networked model of emergency management preparation to support not just us, but communities across the county. We're working on laying the groundwork for our AI policy and rolling out some training so that we are doing it in a thoughtful way that also lets staff take advantage of this new technology. Just last week, ESDA hosted an open house for some staff, and the mayor I know was there to swear in a couple members. Our volunteer corps went up from 5 to 18. So on days like today, when there's storms, when there's traffic needs, Windmill City Festival, 4th of July, those ESDA members are now able to help out and be a part of that. Zach and the community development team are continuing to add more and more permits online. I think we're up to over 20, if not more. And those are continuing to be put online on a regular basis. And as you probably see, we're now using a standard city council memo template to talk about how it connects to the strategic plan, what the budget financial implications are, how we're communicating it, pros and cons, and various other things like that. Kind of looking ahead, as I previewed, we're coming up to the last 2 years of the plan. We're more than halfway through. As we wind down, it's going to be evident that there's just some things we're either not going to be able to get to, or they're going to require a lot more resources than we initially anticipated. So as we come to the end of the plan, start thinking about what you want to see in the next one, and then also what maybe hasn't been moved as far as you would have hoped in this current plan. We've been extremely thankful that you've made some significant investments into capital improvements, into staff capacity and other things over the last couple of budget years. And that is making real meaningful improvement. The couple of staff that you have added, like I said, you guys added an enterprise application specialist that was able to help us get a system online that vendors couldn't even figure out. Management analysts have helped us on document digitization, budget planning, and long-term planning as well. So think about what you want to see as part of the 27 budget, what things you want to see in the next plan, because it'll be here before you know it.
Alderman Fehrenbach.
Thank you for the readout. Just a quick question. So when it comes to over the past year, we've obviously accomplished a lot. I think we've had some big projects launch, right? I think the QT9 getting a big employer downtown, that's a big deal, right? That's a game changer. But when I look at some of the buildings that were kind of empty, if we look back, 12 months ago versus now, we've added some, right? I mean, it's been a net loss for a lot of stuff. So my question is, where Just to read it right now, right? So if we look at the square block of Houston and 31 right there, right? So we have the old Hubbard. I know we said that was going to be torn down. You know, we're still waiting on that. We have the area. We have the old Aquaviva, 79 North Water Street. We have 24 South Batavia Avenue, building next to Hubbard's. We have the Olmsted building, which I know at one point we said was going to go up for sale. It has not gone up for sale. We have Everdean's. They closed their Naperville office. The concern is that, or their Naperville location. The concern is that, you know, is next on deck. I know we said we had some interest in the area across from Depot Museum. And then obviously we have all things River Street with Pal Joey's obviously closed. Thankfully we were able to get the chimney remediated so that the property could move. Now we find out the bookshop's probably going to close as well. And then obviously we lost Greenology. It'd be nice just to get these on a tracker so we can just list them. Hey, like where are these things? Because people do notice. I think if Everdean's were to go, then people are going to notice that as well, and then that whole block is going to come back into focus. I think we've benefited from people are just used to some of these properties being empty, right? Quite frankly, because some of them have. I would just like to get this more formalized and just on tracker.
I think that's part of what the economic development strategic plan may be addressing. It sounded like most of the issues were vacancies or economic development related. We did approve a contract for the economic development strategic plan with a really good firm, and that's going to give specific tailored efforts to try to address some of those problems specifically.
We also have the database that we had shown you before. We can show you that again. That has like the different properties and their status. So that's something we can share again with you.
I know we said I know we said that dashboard is going to be public. Is that going to be public, or is that out there now?
It is not out there now. No. I think we were still refining a few things before we would consider making that public, but that's been kind of more of an internal document at this point.
Just as the Everdean's thing, I'm told that it was solely due to landlord rent situations out in Naperville. They're doing just fine here.
That's what we've heard as well.
Keep going.
Yes.
One thing I'd like to do is, do we have a plan to put this on the website?
Yes.
So it's just, just to highlight it, so it's not just part of the website, but hey, this is Batavia news. These are the things that have happened. These are the things to look forward to that are happening right now in town. That QT9 will hopefully be up and running next year. The stuff like that I think is important for people to understand, that they may not see every day something happen there, but this is a big deal and we should publicize that.
For sure. And I know Lori does a really good job of promoting when good things are happening in the community. That's something that we try to, for lack of a better phrase, pat ourselves on the back when we as a community have done something really well. That's something that we continue to do. And I know that various departments are working on things to kind of promote their successes as well. One of the things is that government doesn't tend to give themselves a lot of positive shout outs. We're trying to do more of that to let people know that there are good, big things happening throughout the community. With the ramp, the bathrooms, we hear a lot of really good feedback. If you're ever out there, I am shocked by how often people are using. I can't stand there without seeing 5, 6, 7 people go past there. And I saw, like a mom walking her, kid in a stroller down by the Riverwalk. Probably was never going to do that before the ramp got there because of stairs and other things. So those are things that people are seeing, and that, when people talk about Batavia, there's that momentum, that growth that's continuing to happen. Yeah, we have some things that aren't going as well as we would hope, but I think that there's some really good strategies being looked at and put in place to make those things better and to continue driving this forward.
I think it's important when we spend time and we involve the community in putting together a plan, like the strategic plan, that we come back with not only just, hey, we know what the progress is, but here's what we've been working on for the last 5 years. Yep. And now these 3 things got done this year that are big improvements. And it's because of the plan that we had and the fact that we go back and hold ourselves, accountable for what we said we were going to do. And we're getting, we might not get it all done, but we're getting progress on it. And I think it's important for the public to know that not only do we take it seriously when we make a plan, but we don't just make a plan and put it on the shelf. We actually get the things done. Senator Malone?
Yeah, this is great. And when I was first brought on to council, I found the strategic plan and the interface on the website very helpful, right? It really kind of helped me get a sense of what my role was, and I've been pointed a lot of folks to it here. And it's nice to see those percentages actually update every now and then. It looks like a lot of them haven't really been updated since 2024, though. Maybe that's because we're stuck on certain things, but that's neither here nor there. As we're looking forward, we're kind of rolling up to the end of this strategic plan. What is the roadmap then for coming up with the next strategic plan? When does that process begin? How do we go about it? What's going to happen there?
I would expect to, so one of the things that we did when we were designing our strategic plan is we set these outcomes. I don't anticipate these outcomes are going to change much unless you feel they need to be changed. It's kind of our, what did we see as Batavia as when we're achieving our fullest potential? I don't think we're there yet, but it's something we continue to strive for. So these are our goals or our outcomes essentially. I would anticipate that that would occur sometime in 2028, kind of early to mid-year, ahead of the 28 budget. So similar to how we did it last time, we did a workshop, we did some activities with the council to kind of understand what are those priorities going on the next several years. We can talk about whether a 5-year plan was the right length, whether we want to change that. Those are conversations we can have kind of as that plan comes to a close in 2028.
You think like a 6-month window is enough? I'm sort of thinking the strategic plans I've been involved in, they're like a year-long project.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can also talk about that during the retreat as well, among other things. How much time do we need to kind of revise and put things together? I think because we do have these outcomes that are likely to be stable across plans, it's more of the how do we do things? What are we going to put in there? And that's where staff can come up with ideas, kind of share those with you, and then you can kind of pick and choose which ones are most appropriate. I do think one thing that we've heard from staff and that we took a big bite with this plan, and we're doing our best, bad food analogies, to chew, but it's a big bite, and we knew that we might not accomplish everything, and we likely wouldn't. But for those of you who know the quote, like, make no little plans, that's kind of the mindset we chose with this. And so even though there's areas where we haven't accomplished as much as we wanted, that's why when you hear from me, I talk about what we have done, because I've got 4 slides of things that we've been able to accomplish. And so I think that's where sometime probably in the first half of 2028 would be when we would have that discussion and start really bringing that back up to you all.
And in time so that we could have that inform the budget process for the following year.
Yeah, I think it's important to go back through this and just look at that and say, okay, are these really the outcomes that we thought they were? Are these the things that we wanted to accomplish? And maybe look at the things that didn't get done and figure out if those areas are the ones that need some tweaks and some changes. So that way you do make realistic plans, to be able to achieve things that you want to have happen. Andrea?
With that, I'm going to, again, be the realist here because I'm the one that's working on executing these. The first year was definitely a struggle to even get through some, and I will admit it's been very busy. I have it on my monthly calendar to update them, and I don't always get to it because it's low priority on my list, but I do go back and update it. That when you're looking at these strategic goals, also take into account where they sit with the priorities for capital improvements, because we are one and the same team that is working on all of these things. So then you add in all the requests that we're getting daily, weekly, from council, from residents. It does add up. So that's how come sometimes these things don't always get done as quick as possible. And then when we are looking at planning and changing, it'd be better to have this a little bit earlier in a budget year than at the tail end when we've already allocated funds and kind of have come up with our plan so that we can incorporate this and be able to execute it and start checking off all the boxes. So that's just a little bit of feedback
I was going to say that's a really good point because when we put the first year of the plan in, the budget was more or less finalized by the time the plan was finalized. So we had to pigeonhole some things where we could. But, I think starting in, 25 and now 26, you see a lot more connection between the resources we're providing in the budget and the strategic plan. Some of those analysts, some of those additional positions, some of the, major capital projects we've had really are tying them back to the budget and the strategic plan.
And we really appreciate the support that we have had from City Council. It's a conversation. You're setting the policy and the vision for what you want to see in the future. We're saying we would be able to accomplish that if we had the following resources in order to be able to do that. And it's been working really well. So appreciated.
Person back?
My question is a follow-up to Kevin and Andrea's point. When we're evaluating where we are and where we think we want to go next, should we take what's on the website in terms of the updates that have been made as this is updated, or should we wait for an update on some of these things?
We go in probably once, I know Laura and I go in kind of every quarter and try to put in updates where we've known they've been made. It depends on staff turnover, other things, kind of, putting them in the system, getting them trained how to use it, put in updates and whatnot. If you're reading through and you have questions, there's probably going to be an update that might not be in there. And those get added as staff tend to do them in bulk, kind of on a not so super regular basis. But if you're reading through things and have a question, there's probably a lot more progress that's been made that's maybe in there, or things that we have not wanted to put publicly, but they're working behind the scenes, and you may know about those as well. So those are some of the reasons why you might not see as many updates within that.
One of the things that has been challenging with this system is the detail that we put into it. It's both kind of a blessing and a curse. Oftentimes you see strategic plans that have 4 different objectives and maybe 4 things under each one of those objectives. Instead, we've got 8 different areas of where we're working on them, and they have like 12 different action items under them. So it's both a lot, right? But it's also very specific too. So I think it's got its advantages in that way that it's very specific.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that we'd like to have more thoughtful discussion when we talk about these updates. We do these quarterly, right? You update us quarterly. And when I got the memo on Friday, I was surprised it didn't have like a link to this, to show us what we were doing. So then we all come here, we see this for the first time, and then it's difficult, at least for me, to come up with thoughtful questions, on the spot. So I'd like to have it ahead of time if possible, just to have more time to think about it. And as I'm hearing the conversation here, it's difficult to have this thoughtful discussion without some of these updates on the plan. Like you mentioned, Laura mentioned, Andrea mentioned, you mentioned, it's difficult for staff to update it all the time. So you go in there once a quarter and what is updated, you update. It almost seems like you should be updating it as you go, right? Like, and I know time is difficult. But again, it just brings me to the point of it's difficult to have a conversation about our strategic plan if we don't really know where we're at, right? Like I'm looking at it and 4 of them are below 40%. And so that's probably not accurate, but when I read...
it could be.
When I read what those topics are, I'm like, oh, those are really important. I wish we could do more work on that. So I guess my comments really are geared towards, I hope that we're able to be more updated, have more real-time, stats on where we sit to have this conversation. Because yes, like you said, think about where we want to be and what we want to do, but it sounds like we're going to be doing a fine-tooth combing through in 2028, but I agree with Alderperson Malone that 2028 seems a little too late to do that. I'd like to do it every quarter, just kind of combing through it and seeing where we're at, what should we moving our funding more towards, shifting it there if funding is the issue, which we know it is. Just to have a better idea on where we're at.
Something that has been a challenge is that tasks like that have, during the time that I've been here, really fallen on the shoulders of the directors of the department to do with their extremely broad scope of responsibilities. I think they find it very difficult to find the time to do those types of administrative tasks. But the positions that we have been adding specifically, such as the management analysts, that's a great person to be able to, once they have become knowledgeable about, all aspects of the organization that they're plugged into, could take over that responsibility. So I think you'll see that get better in the future.
Point well taken.
I'll say that when we first approved all of this, I thought quite a bit of it was kind of pie in the sky stuff and, big plans. I know, let's make big plans. But even though I was approving it at the time, I knew looking forward, I was going to be a realist about how this was going to happen. That's number one. So I'm very satisfied with everything that's been done, and I'm very satisfied with all the hard work staff does. Number two, administrative tasks were just discussed. Those are like the worst part of my job. It's like, it's like the thing in Office Space. Did you see the memo? Did you put the cover page on the QT report? These administrative tasks are mundane, and they actually take away from everything everybody wants to get done here, because then staff is doing mundane things. I trust the process. It's kind of like, if you think of basketball, it's the Philadelphia 76ers, trust the process. And they did. They actually, they've done well. But trust the process and don't worry about the mundane administrative stuff. And I think that if we keep on adding stuff for staff to do, administrative things that really don't move the needle, it's going to take away from staff actually accomplishing these pie in the sky, some of them, goals that City Council thought would be a good big plan that we're trying to strive for. So I would just like to point out, it seems like staff's getting bashed a little bit here. I think they're doing a great job. I think we're moving forward. I think we're accomplishing things. I think we're doing way more than we have in the past, and I'm satisfied.
Echoing a lot of what Alderman Solfa just said. We do have a lot on here for a transition, for a strategic plan. A couple of things just kind of come to mind. Usually when we look at creating a new big project, at least at work, we say, okay, what worked and what didn't, right? We'll have like a lessons learned, right? Because you can't all just be, everyone high fives. The other part, we have enough people cycling out. I think we need to get transition plans like at a strategic level, right? Just from a staff perspective, as well as long-term city council members, just potentially we're kind of rolling out here. So I think we need to kind of raise that visibility up a bit.
I think there's a fine balance between putting in every detail versus putting in details that allow you to do your jobs in the right way. So solid feedback, that's something that Laura and I will think about and how we can implement that. A lot of times we go in ourselves and update it just so, because we have that visibility across the organization, to kind of take that off and let the people that are doing the work do their work, and having us kind of put in that update. So that's something that solid feedback I'm hearing, and we'll work to improve that going forward.
I lost my train of thought a little bit while I was listening to you, but just wanted to follow up that I don't think anyone is bashing staff. I think that it is our job to approve the plans and then try to make sure that the plan is a living document. We all know there's lots of plans that sat on shelves here in the city of Batavia and never got acted on. The tool that you picked so that we can actually see the live updates, that's amazing. That just in and of itself is an accomplishment that this team, that this staff has brought to us and is such an asset to our community and seeing progress. We are seeing progress, and I think that is something. Change is not necessarily always a Batavia thing. So when we're able to see that thing change and update, that's really exciting. That is just something that we should be really proud of. And I know it's another task on the thing, but we can't make future plans if we don't know where we are in the moment. So yeah.
Alderman Pieper?
I was just going to say as well, on top of that, I know this is a very ambitious plan and folks have definitely would all agree with that. To my mind, I think there's also always an expectation that not everything would be accomplished within this 5-year period, that there would be a lot of rollover. So I think folks are generally appreciative of that, mostly because it also emphasizes that these are long-term plans, not just 5-year plans. These are what we'd like to get rolling now, but to have momentum going forward to have a more cohesive and comprehensive, like long-term goals. So I think there's definitely that aspect. In terms of feedback, maybe to the point of having these discussions somewhat more often, helping us better understand what the pain points are and what your biggest roadblocks are going through this sometimes, I think is really what we would want to hear so that we understand better what is really causing maybe some of your greatest issues. So for me, it's not a like, oh, you guys aren't getting enough done. It's a, have we given you too much to eat? And obviously we have in some ways, but better appreciating the operational side of it. And going through this and saying, oh, this is why this hasn't made much progress in a while. Here's how we can maybe help, or at least when we make decisions, better keep that aspect in mind. So,
and I think you bring up a good point about, like kind of all of us have acknowledged, this was a very ambitious plan. We did not anticipate getting everything done in here. I think that was clear up front. But what continues to encourage myself, Laura, and staff is that we are making that progress. We're only 3 years into this. We still got 2 more years to go. And, part of, when we do our budgets, we're looking through and going, did we put resources behind this? Are we seeking to fund that? Some of these things that we've put in there, like, I'll toss an example. We put in there that we want to do more separating sewers. That's very expensive to do, but it's something that you may be seeing as part of it.
Did you just get a notification that I updated that?
So, like I said, there's a lot of things that continue to happen. These, like Alderwoman Beck said, is that 3 years into a plan, we have a list of accomplishments that is pretty, in my mind, impressive. We also likely did bite off more that we can chew. Sometimes that does, frankly, cause stress to staff because you give them a list of things to do, and if they don't accomplish everything, there's like I didn't get what I was supposed to get done, and we're trying to say, hey, keep working this, make as much progress as you can. It's not meant to all get done. But that's one of the things that likely will be our point on the next strategic plan. Maybe scaling things down a little bit and more tailored so that we can try to accomplish more and that they're more realistic goals for us to get through. But that's something that we can talk about with you all as we move forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear, I understand that this plan wasn't going to be 100% accomplished in 5 years. So I hope that you heard my feedback as things to work on, things to grow on, and understand the hard work you all do every day, and I appreciate it. Where I just wanted you guys to highlight that is online, because that's transparency.
Sure. Understood.
Right? Like, that is what we want our government to be, transparent, and we as elected officials were elected to be that as well. So even in my comments to Laura on her review, which you'll get later, but right now I'll just let you know because I have nothing to hide. One of them was that I want to see the directors and staff highlight in the strategic plan the challenges and the accomplishments, because you're doing all the work. So let's let everybody know, what you guys are working on. So yes, please keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate your work.
Yeah, 2 things real quick, just as we're kind of cracking this open. First, I think kind of in the vein of what we've just been talking about, I really love the dashboard. I mean, I just love it. And I'm clicking through it, and then when I click on it, I clicked on one here. What is it? Issue survey based on timeframes and ideas that are incorporated for the Business Pulse survey. We're at 13%. Cool, on track. There's a little note here. It'd be cool to see kind of what's the next step might be a fun thing to add. I don't know if that works into our admin scales.
For example, that data flows into the economic development strategic plan
Yeah.
that is going to be, so
Quick little note.
for sure, those are things we'll work on.
Just a thought. And then just to throw a big idea out there, as we're thinking about the 2028 plan, just maybe we should all think about it here, that I don't know if we can have I don't know if we can have a plan without talking about the dam, right? We have some very specific things in here, like increase, there's a fly bugging me here. Specific, like increase outreach to Fermilab, stabilization in this specific area of the river. I think it would be imprudent of us not to have the dam be part of our conversations when we come up with the 2028 plan, because no matter what, whether it's ours or the city or the Corps of Engineers or whoever's, we need to get serious about it. So we don't have to talk about that tonight, but for the
It'll show up in the budget.
well, no one say anything else about it, but
It's going to be in the
The flies
budget.
landed on my head too, so it must be
Kevin,
a
see,
sign.
that was right here on the top of my budget notes. I did show.
People are reading minds over there.
Yeah, ESP.
Great, the weather will take care of it. Fehrenbach?
Yeah, I'm kind of a downer. Sorry, I apologize. I think staff's been doing a great job. I think we need to help you take stuff off your plate. 'Cause I think you guys say yes a lot when you should be saying no for some things, and I think we need to give you the comfort level to where you feel you can say no, right? And I think we do a good job on that. The one thing I will say, I'm an old man, and I know year after a presidential election, probably going to be a recession coming up. So when I hear 2028, I think 2028, 2029, probably not going to be the best from an economic perspective, right? Regardless of who wins or what goes on, right? Just haven't been around here long enough. So I think as we look forward, we may need to have a plan B in our back pocket, right? Whether you want to admit it or not. So
Should always be thinking about that.
Yeah, and I think it's important too that you realize and you think about that as that is the time that you have to be, your thumb has to be on the pulse of what's going on and be ready to change.
Well, that's what we have a staff to do.
And that's why it's good to have a plan, because even if everything else falls apart, you can at least try to get some of the stuff done that you want to get done to help the town. Okay, are we done discussing? Thanks, Max. Okay, we'll now move on to city council updates. Project status, Laura?
Yes, I wanted to start out today. There was an item that was unintentionally left off of the agenda tonight. It was an intergovernmental agreement with the school, library, and park district for legal representation to challenge tax appeals jointly, so that we're not all going out and hiring our own legal counsel to do it. It's really basically, we all have the same interest in preventing seeing that happen. And so with your permission, we'll just put that on the regular agenda for the city council. And there'll be a memo with that to explain all of that and discussion. But the other bodies are approving that right now. And so we just wanted to move that forward, if that's all right. Cool.
Real quick, I'm sorry, do we need a motion for that to put it on the agenda or?
No.
No? Okay.
No. In the past, I've sometimes just sent out an email to say if anybody objects to it being on there. And certainly it's on the agenda. Any person could make the motion to take it off of the agenda and table it for a future meeting. We met with FGMA for an update on the space needs analysis and condition assessment for city facilities, and they plan to give a presentation to City Council in September about the results of that study. Also, a date has been set for city staff and park district staff and our own engineers to meet and discuss utilities and other aspects of the two sites that were identified in our last meeting with the park district for the Mooseheart properties to be shared between a park district recreational facility as well as a future new police department facility. We recently received back the results of a hotel study that indicated that, guess what? The city of Batavia could support a hotel, our very first one. So we want to broadcast that broad and wide. And so we've created a webpage to that effect with a bunch of keywords we hope hotel developers are all looking for, as well as Lori Boderman created a press release to go along with that too. And we will send that through our normal channels, but also to some that will be more targeted toward that hotel development community. There was just an excellent National Night Out last week. If any of you were able to attend, we had hundreds of people who were there, and Beth Drendel from ESDA was asking people where they were from, and they weren't just from Batavia. They were from other nearby communities. Some of the people she talked to were from Wisconsin, and it was a great collaboration between all of our first responders, whether it be police, fire, or public works, our first responders there too. So kudos to everybody who had a part in planning that fantastic event. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions for Laura? Okay, does anybody have any others? I have one, just a reminder that the corn boil is Friday at the high school, so get out there and get ready. We're a week away from football and 2 days away from the school starting again.
I do have one. Now you mentioned football. So funny story. So I went to Maine South High School. When I first moved out here, I realized 20 years ago, there's no way Batavia is ever going to play Maine South because they're in different conferences, never going to happen. That's pretty, that's pretty good. I was a varsity player, all that good stuff. And so sure enough, I don't follow high school football daily. My father still does. He's still in Park Ridge. But I don't look at the names. And so so my dad let me know, by the way, Batavia is going to play Maine South. And I'm like, oh my God. I can't believe it's the biggest thing ever, right? And sure enough, some of my old friends from high school, you're an alderman in Batavia? And so that was kind of funny. Got a laugh out of that. But then I saw the coach's name, Dave and Sarah. He was my coach in high school. I am 51 years old. This guy is still around.
Still there?
He's still there. So when he was my coach, he's a freshman, sophomore coach. Now he's still doing varsity and all this stuff. And unfortunately, I have to drive my child to college, so I can't be around for the game. But Dave, I can't believe you're still around. Congratulations for hanging in there. Although, enjoy your first loss of the season.
Not going to happen.
Batavia is number 9 max preps.
Yeah, in the state. They are extremely fast, extremely...
No, I meant to Dave.
Yeah, he meant that. They're going to lose.
Oh, they're going to lose.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I got that.
Clarify there.
Yeah.
This may be a historical season. Yeah. It really might. I mean, this team is loaded. They stay healthy, they'll do really good.
Number 9 in the whole state.
Yep, I know. That's amazing. Okay, if nothing else, I look for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.